if the United States were engaged militarily in these other regions, there'd be a huge amount of resentment. When the U.S. was meddling in Latin America, there was, of course, huge, huge resentment. And when the U.S. was in Vietnam, there was profound resentment and destabilization. The U.S. just happens to have invaded Iraq right now because we viewed the absolute perfidy of, as they said, they're daring to use our oil, which happened to be under their sand, in ways that they wanted to do. So I think that that's, in my view, the basic problem. Look, the world's filled with nasty and evil people, by the way, all over the world. And so I don't want to leave the impression that we're the only ones wrong in these matters. But the approach that we've taken is increasingly likely to lead to a self-fulfilling spiral of global violence. That's my point. We're not taking the high road. We're not even looking for it. We don't even understand what it would mean. And if we said to countries in the region, you all have massive water problems, you have massive ecological problems, you have massive energy problems, let's work together with you to solve these problems. In my opinion, what that would do for American safety would have about a 1,000-fold advantage over the military approach that we have right now. If we actually tried to inspire with solutions rather than with threat, occupation, and bombing. But we don't want to do that. So that, to me, is the big problem. We are simply not putting forward a positive vision. We're putting forward a vision of occupier. And that is not ever going to succeed in this world. In terms of where to get information, this is a really good and difficult question. For us, we're in a very privileged position. We live in the most information-rich environment that there is. So go to seminars, take classes, talk to professors. I find whenever a question comes up, I direct an institute of 700 scientists. I'm able to ask someone, and in about 5 minutes, since I'm director, I get back an absolutely clear and authoritative answer, which is absolutely illuminating, and which helps me to understand a huge number of things that otherwise I would not understand. I read, of course, as much as I can that I think is useful. I suffer through the New York Times, but barely these days. I read the Wall Street Journal, except I peek at the editorial page, but it basically just to get my blood going in the morning. The Financial Times is a good newspaper, and I would, among English language newspapers, it's the best in the world, in my opinion. And I read Science and Nature as much as I can each week. And I recommend that, by the way, to everybody. It's an eye-opening reality, because so many of our problems are understood in the scientific community about 10 or 15 years before they become part of American Idol. That's really important, actually. It gives you a window into a reality absolutely more important, or at least as important as the reality that you think you have a window into right now. So I'm on a campaign to get people to read at least the layman. I can't understand the vast majority of the articles in the back of each issue, but I can understand a little of them, and I read the front half of each of the issues pretty avidly about science policy, technical change, editorials, and more layman's descriptions of the technical papers in the back of each issue. But for you, there won't be a problem of knowledge. You're in the world's center of knowledge. You really are. Not necessarily the world's center of good judgment, by the way, but the world's center of knowledge. So all the technical things you need to understand really within a radius of just 3 or 4 miles, you can't do better than this place. I know it. You cannot do better than this place in the world. Of course, this place, I keep saying, got to get out to see the world a little bit more, and it would do even better than it's doing. But I don't know the answer to your question in a more general sense of how the public discourse can be raised considerably, but we absolutely need to do it. The wondrous thing about technology, by the way, is you don't have to understand it. None of us understands anything about the technologies we use and depend on. That's what's so beautiful about them. You do not, most of you, understand Maxwell's equations, and yet you still use your cell phone. And you don't understand quantum mechanics, but you still use semiconductors. That's wonderful. And that's what's so beautiful about our world. We can just be as ignorant and dumb as we want, and we still have cell phones and computers. But for the problems that we need a shared understanding on climate change, on not blowing each other up, on what to do about drought, food supply, biodiversity, we actually have to understand these problems because they don't come packaged as technologies. Or if they do, the technologies don't get adopted because the markets don't lead to their adoption. They're a different kind of problem, and that's why public understanding is actually important. We need politics, informed politics. It would be great if we could do away with the need for politics. It's hard. It actually requires heavy work to be knowledgeable. I can't keep up with the reading that I need to do to feel minimally capable to talk about the topics that I talk about or study. It requires a tremendous amount of work. And that's in a privileged, information-rich environment. So I don't know the answer to your question.